Abdur Rahman narrates that the Prophet stood on the pulpit one day to deliver a sermon. After praising Allah and reciting the Shahada, he said, "I intend sending some of you to the non-Arab kings, so do not dispute before me, as the Bani Israel did in front of Jesus, the son of Maryam." To this, the Muhajireen said, "O Prophet, we shall never ever dispute with you concerning anything. Issue the command and send us wherever you wish." The Prophet then sent Shuja bin Wahab to Kisra. When he arrived, Kisra had his palace decorated and gathered the leading personalities of his kingdom there before admitting Shuja. When Shuja entered, Kisra ordered that the letter of the Prophet should be taken from Shuja and handed over to him. However, Shuja refused to surrender the letter and insisted that he wanted to personally hand the letter to Kisra, as the Prophet had commanded him. Kisra permitted him to draw close, and when he did, he handed the letter over. Kisra then summoned one of his scribes from Hira, who read the letter out. The letter read, "In the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful, from Muhammad, the Rasul of Allah, to Kisra, the Emperor of Persia. Peace be on the one who follows the guidance, who believes in Allah and his Rasul, and who testifies that there is none worthy of worship but the one Allah who has no partners, and that Muhammad is Allah's servant and Rasul. I call you with the invitation of Allah, for I am the Rasul of Allah to all of mankind, who warns the living so that the decree of punishment becomes binding on the disbelievers. If you accept Islam, you shall live in peace, and if you refuse, then the sin of the fire worshippers shall be on you." The fact that the Prophet begun the letter with his name instead of Kisra's infuriated Kisra so much that he tore the letter to bits. He then ordered Shuja out of his court. Mounting his conveyance, Shuja said, "By Allah! Now that I have delivered the letter of the Prophet, I have no concern about whether Kisra is pleased or not." When Kisra's anger had abated, he sent someone to call Shuja back, but Shuja had already left by then. The person searched for him until he reached Hira, but Shuja was already far ahead. When Shuja reported back to the Prophet and informed him that Kisra had torn up the letter, the Prophet commented, "Kisra has torn up his kingdom?" Abu Salam bin Abdir Rahman narrates that after Kisra tore up the letter, he wrote to Badhan, the governor of Yemen, instructing, "It has reached me that a person has surfaced in your district who claims to be a prophet. Tell him to stop what he is doing, otherwise I shall send an army that will kill him and his people. Send 2 heavily built muscular men to this man in Hijaz-i, the land of Mecca and Medina, with instructions to bring him to me." In compliance with the letter, Badhan sent his chief minister Abanu in the company of a Persian man called Jad Jamira. Abanu was a man proficient in Persian letters and numbers. Badhan sent a letter with them to the Prophet, instructing the Prophet to leave for the court of Kisra with the 2 of them. Badhan also instructed his chief minister Abanu to scrutinize the Prophet, to engage him in discussion, and to report the details back to him. The 2 left and finally reached Taif, where they made inquiries about the Prophet from some businessmen of the Quraysh. They were informed that the Prophet was in Medina. Realizing that the 2 men were out to take the Prophet to Kisra, became overjoyed and exclaimed, "Now that Kisra has stood up against the Prophet, we have nothing more to do to stop him." When the 2 men entered the presence of the Prophet, their faces were shaven off and their mustaches were grown very long. The Prophet therefore detested even looking at them and said, "Woe to you! Who instructed you to do this?" Referring to Kisra, they said, "Our Rabb commanded us to do this." The Prophet said to them, "My Rabb has commanded me to let my beard grow and to trim my mustache." Abanu spoke to the Prophet and said to him, "Kisra has written to Badhan with instructions to send someone to take you before him. He has sent me so that you can come with me." Or said, "Indeed, the king of all kings Kisra wrote to the governor Badhan instructing him to send someone who would bring you to him. If you comply by going to Kisra, I shall send a letter with you that will benefit you. However, if you refuse, Kisra shall destroy you and your people and turn your land into ruins." To which the Prophet replied to him, "Had this propagation been something that I am doing of my own accord, I shall be able to stop it. However, the glorious and magnificent Allah has sent me to do it." The Prophet said to him, "You may leave now and return to see me tomorrow." When the 2 arrived the next day, the Prophet informed them of the precise night of a particular month in which Allah has killed Kisra and handed the kingdom over to his son Shurway. "Go to your governor and inform him that my Lord Allah has killed his Lord Kisra." He 2 men were shocked and asked, "Do you know what you are saying? May we write back to Badhan with this news?" "Certainly," replied the Prophet, "and tell him that if he accepts Islam, I shall hand back to him control of all the lands he presently rules." The Prophet then gave Jad Jamira a belt decorated with gold and silver that had been given to him as a gift. When the 2 returned to Yemen and informed Badhan about the events, "We have not seen a king as blessed as he. He walks about freely without any fear, dresses most simply, has no bodyguards, and no one raises their voice before him." Badhan said, "This is not the speech of some king. We should definitely investigate the truth of what he said." They did not have to wait long before they received a letter from Shurway, the son of Kisra, which after the formalities stated, with the support of the Persian people, I have killed Kisra in a fit of fury because he saw nothing wrong in killing Persian nobles for no reason. Secure allegiance to me from all the people in Yemen and ensure that you cause no harm to the person who claims to be the prophet whom Kisra ordered you to capture. After reading the letter of Shirway, Badhan said, "This man, Muhammad, peace be upon him, must certainly be a prophet from God." He then accepted Islam, and so did all the Persians living in Yemen.